friends, it's Miss Kayla from the Fredricksen Library. Today I'm going to teach you how to sew a pillow. You will need a needle, some thread, some fabric, scissors, and a marker. You can use any fabric you have at your house. If you have some old clothes that you've outgrown, you can just cut a little bit off of it. And your pillow can be as big or small as you want. I'm just using a little bit so I can demonstrate it for you and you won't have to watch me sew a huge pillow. First, I'm taking my fabric and I'm folding it in half because I need two of the very same shape. So I'm going to make a heart. Alright. If you can't cut through both pieces of your fabric at the same time, that's okay. You can cut out one and then trace it on the second piece. But I have really sharp scissors, so I am able to cut both at the same time. The good thing about this project is we are going to use the scraps to stuff the pillow, so you don't need anything else to put inside. I'm just going to cut it up into some chunks so that it makes it more fluffy inside. Okay, and we'll use those later. Now, for my pillow, I'm going to do a technique where I sew along the outside of my shape, and then I'm going to leave an opening along one side and turn it inside out so it looks like a stuffed animal or pillow you might have at your house. If you don't want to turn it inside out, you can just sew around the outside and you'll just see the edge that you sewed, and it's a pretty cool style. You can do that if you like it. So I am just going to pull some thread off of my spool. It doesn't really matter how much you have because you can always add more later. So you might need an adult to help you with this part. I do this quite often, so I kind of know what I'm doing. So you need to take the thread and stick it through the opening of the needle. That part can be tricky. And then you're going to pull the thread the whole way until they line up at the ends, and we're going to make a knot. Okay, so I have my two ends of my thread, and my needle is stuck through the other end. So an easy way to make a knot in thread is to take two fingers, wrap the thread around both fingers kind of loose, and then take this piece and just stick it between your fingers. You have a big loop and just pull it. I like to get close to the end so I'm not wasting too much of my thread. Now I have a knot. Now it doesn't really matter where you start sewing from, but I want to leave a space so that I can get my stuffing inside. So I'm just going to start here. And I always poke through the bottom. I'm going to hold it this way so you guys can kind of see it. Pull your thread the whole way through. Make sure it doesn't get caught on things. And then right next to it, a little bit over, poke it back through. This part can be tricky. Make sure you're watching both sides of your fabric if you've never done this before, because you can very easily poke your finger and it hurts a little bit and usually bleeds. So you're going to go the whole way around your shape, back and forth. Sometimes this happens. Just gently pull. It's kind of making a knot until it breaks open. Make sure each time you do this, you're getting both pieces of your fabric. I almost missed the bottom side when I was coming back through that time. Oh, and I have a knot, so I'm just going to gently pull my thread until it loosens up. Sometimes you have to pull on one side of the thread, since we have two pieces. There we go, to pull it the whole way through. And as you're sewing, just check that those things aren't happening. I didn't see that knot because it was on the underside of my pillow. You don't want to leave too big of a gap between your stitches because your center will fall out. We're using fabrics that's a little bit bigger and it'll be harder to come out through the openings, but if you have something like stuffing at home or ever make a pillow when you use the stuffing, that falls out really easily. This is a pretty simple craft to do, and if you have a big piece of fabric, you could make lots of small little things like hearts or other shapes. You can make some for your stuffed animals or dolls, or give them out as gifts. I always have more fun making a project whenever I plan to give it to somebody. I feel like I try really hard and do my very best. If you pull too hard, you'll get some bumps like that, but you can easily just slide the thread and it will fix it. If you're going to reverse your shape like I am, it doesn't matter how your stitches look. Some of mine are a little bit closer, some are a little bit more further away, some are bigger and shorter. If you are leaving your stitches exposed, that means so you can see them when you're finished, you might want to try to get them the exact distance apart or the same size. Oh, that's a big knot. In my family, I have a lot of women who sew, and that's how I learned how to sew. My great-grandma used to sew, and my grandma, and then my mom. So this is a skill my family knows how to do, and everybody taught their children. So I think that's a really cool thing. And I like to share my sewing skill with other people because not everyone knows how to sew. Okay, I am going to stop right there. I have a gap that I haven't sewn closed yet, so I'm going to make a knot first. Be careful with this one because you'll have the needle on the end, but it makes it a little easier because you can just guide the needle through. And try to get it as close to the fabric as you can when you're knotting it, so that it doesn't come through. And then you can trim the extra. Now I'm gonna flip it so I can stuff it. This part's really tricky, but just push all the fabric through the little opening like this. And then with your fingers, just kind of follow the seam that you made on the inside. All right, now I'm gonna stuff it. I don't know if I'll need all of this. It just depends how firm you want your pillow to be. I think I'm going to be able to fit all of mine in, which is awesome because that means I'm not wasting any of it. Alright, this part can be a little bit tricky, but just try to have some patience, and remember, you can keep practicing until you get really good at this part. So, I fold my openings in on each side, and then I push them closed like this. Now we're going to take our needle and close up this area. You'll be able to see that stitch a little bit, but that's okay. I have to add another knot because it won't stay if I pull it through and there's no knot at the end. I'm going to start by putting my needle on the inside of one side of my opening. And I'm going to tuck that in so you can't see. Now I'm just going to close it up . So this end is pulling out a little bit. It's not staying folded because I have stuffing in the inside. So I'm just going to tuck it back in when I get close and hold it down with my fingers so that I have a nice place that I can put the needle through. Just be careful you don't poke yourself. And I'm going to keep sewing until I meet where my last stitch ended. It's a little tough to see because it's tucked inside, so you can just gently pull apart and see my stitches are right next to each other. It's completely closed, feels good. So now I can make my last knot. Try to get it as close to the fabric as you can so you can trim your thread close. Okay. And now I have my heart pillow. I hope you guys had fun and enjoy making some pillows. If you follow along with this project and like how yours turned out, please post a picture and tag the Fredricksen Library on Facebook or Instagram.